can imagine at the moment Yamaha being fairly conservative in terms of how much power they feed into that V4. Reliability, data gathering was the sort of buzzwords, weren't they, in the official Yamaha launch here in Misano next weekend. As Jack spoke to Mario Meregali, Monster Energy Yamaha team boss this morning, we are going to see the V4 raced in the final part of this campaign, most likely at Sepang and in the season finale at the Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia. So this is not a one-off appearance for that developing V4.
It kind of makes sense that they might try and race it next Grand Prix in Japan, because you could have a bunch of spare motors there. You could be doing, you could be doing a lot of testing with Augusto there. But I guess they have their reasons behind why they do and why they don't want to race it.
Yeah, I think they said this morning they want to put it into a real high-stress situation, like in Malaysia, as you will well know, Kevin, from your racing days back at Shah Alam, how hot, how humid it was. It really is a tough test of the machine out there. So I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to get the V4 assessed in Malaysia, and also, of course, the V4, they'll have a direct reference of the V4 in the final round in Ricardo Tormo before Fabio and Alex Rins and Jack Miller and co jump on the new bike, I would imagine, on the Tuesday test.
Of course, it'll be tested extensively on Monday as well. Of course, the San Marino Grand Prix being followed by a Monday test here. Our colleague Kiko Giles is sticking around to bring you all of the news and views on Monday, so keep your eye on MotoGP social media channels and MotoGP.com on Monday for all the latest. And as we discussed this morning, the Yamaha V4 is going to be the central story, with Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins, Jack Miller all getting their opportunity to ride that V4 on Monday.
Let's go down to Jack then for a pit lane update. Good afternoon, Jack. What's going on?
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody at home. Good afternoon to you guys in the box on this fine Friday afternoon. Just outside Honda, we mentioned this morning the new exhaust system. That's still on both of Joan Mir's bikes, but quite interestingly, Luca Marini, who tried for the first time this new rear aero this morning, which is very, very much like what we see on the Aprilia, with the big sort of Stegosaurus style wings on the back, and then just in front or just behind where the rider's feet are, they have the downward face wings as well. He's opted to have that on both of his bikes for this afternoon, so having tried it for the first time this morning, he's clearly a big fan to have it now on both of his machines. We know from both Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi just how much that revised rear aero helped that RSGP under braking. In particular, they were calling out for some more stability when braking, so that was able to provide the RSGP with a little bit more, and clearly Luca felt exactly the same with the RC213V this morning as well. Honda once again throwing plenty of items, and the good news for them is whatever they're throwing at it at the moment is sticking on the bike. Everything that they're bringing is clearly seeming to work.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. In recent weeks there's been new swing arms, new chassis, new aero, and now we can see clearly on those pictures of Marini going around this Pisano circuit, the Stegosaurus wings now fitted to his rear seat unit. Well, since we last caught up with you, Kev, which was all the way back at round 3 in Austin over in Texas, Marc Marquez had opened 2025, winning the first 2 sprints and the first 2 Grand Prix. We got a sense straight away of how strong he was going to be on the factory Ducati this year. But since Austin, he's done nothing but winning for fun from a distance. What have you made of just the utter brilliance of the 93?
Yeah, he's kind of made it look easy. It was interesting seeing the beginning of the season. He was making a few mistakes when he would be pressured those first couple laps. Maybe not get that perfect start, but he's kind of got accustomed to not getting the greatest of starts and having to work his way through 2 or 3 guys and put his head down for a couple laps and check out. Or if he does get a good start, it's just a disappearing act. So I don't know why we thought Mark might get off a Honda and get on a Ducati, get comfortable, and not get back to that dominant self. But a lot of it was coming back from that injury that he's had, and nobody knew exactly where Mark's new 100% might be. Maybe it was only going to be 98 or 97% of the old Mark. Unfortunately, I think he's back as fit and maybe even 101, 102% Mark now.
24 wins out of 30 so far this season. We've still got 7 rounds remaining. Have you been surprised how easy it has made it look? Have you been surprised at how dominant he has been?
I've normally watched the Saturday race and don't need to watch the Sunday race. So, yes, absolutely. The ease in which he seems he's doing it, to me, it is amazing. And listening to how explicit the detail is about whenever there's left-handers, he just kills everybody by 1/10 of a second in every left-hander that there is. It's like, come on, guys, let's work on our lefts. But yeah, I mean, I got no idea how he's doing it, and obviously the best in the world can't figure it out either. So congrats to Mark.
Of course, the great riders have so many different facets to what makes them great, but of course we've seen a real disparity between Marc Marquez and the other riders on the GP25 this year. Pecco Bagnaia and Fabio Di Antonio have had their problems. They both spoke of the GP25 not necessarily giving them the front confidence that they want. Is that one of the signs of a great rider, and particularly the sign of how great Marc Marquez is, that whatever bike you give him, he's able to just take it and ride it and not put those problems in his head?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It backs up to the Honda, and everybody's like, well, he's winning on the Honda. Everybody should be good on it. No, he put the best guys in the world on him, and they were train wrecks on the Honda. And once Mark got hurt, nobody knew exactly what to do, what direction to go. And, it's just a sign of somebody that can sense what's happening before it happens. And that's a rider that's riding with a lot of confidence on a machine and the crew that he's got tons of confidence with.
Of course, there's been two sides to the story inside the Red Garage this year. I mean, as good and as phenomenal as Mark has been, certainly over the last sort of 6 or 7 Grand Prix, and pretty much for the most of 2025 on the other side, Pecco Bagnaia has had a real struggle. I mean, you hear the words nightmare, disaster coming out of his mouth on a frequent basis. How hard do you think it is right now to be Pecco Bagnaia when you have no confidence in your package and then your teammate is just destroying everybody for fun?
That's what we say as racers, is the one person you don't want to lose to is your teammate. And when he's just demoralizing the field and you're struggling to get into the top 10 sometimes, sleepless nights, not wanting to eat too much, the training side of things shouldn't be an issue, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that should motivate you like there's no tomorrow. But I'm sure Pecco's diligently working on it the best he can, and they're trying to make steps in the right direction, because this season's, I think, pretty much a wash for him. But he's still got a lot of career left.
There's been so much talk of whether Ducati have got to try and give Pecco Bagnaia the bike he needs, or whether Pecco Bagnaia has just got to adapt to the bike that he's being given. How did you approach it? Did you take the bike you were given and just adapt yourself to that, or were you someone who liked to change the bike a lot to try and suit what you needed from it?
I'm fortunate enough that I feel like I was always the top guy at Suzuki. Doug Chandler's probably the teammate that helped the most with the development of the bike in '92, and we both had horrible seasons that year. But it's it's one of those things that you ask for things, but nobody knows exactly how to give that to you. They know we'll try a different chassis, we'll try some more suspension, we'll try adjustments here and there, but there's so many different things that can eventually do what and make the bike feel like you want it to, that you could kind of end up chasing your tail. And especially as a rider, you're frustrated, you're not doing what you go out and you put in a really good hard lap, maybe you try, no, I really like that direction, and it's not the right direction. You just overrode the thing and you got a good lap out of it. So as a rider, you've got to find that pace. You got to be able to tell myself I'm going to test at this certain level, and when I start really noticing improvements at that pace, then I'll try a little harder. But you can't try too hard when you're testing, because if you do, you end up overriding the thing and getting yourself pointed in maybe an obscure direction.
He is still third in this year's World Championship, is Pecco Bagnaia, but I don't think any of us in this commentary box right now would have been imagining a scenario where his last win was when we all sat together at Austin in Texas, and that was a bit of a present for him as well, when Mark crashed out of what was a pretty convincing 2-second lead at the time. Early on then in this practice session, it's the Aprilia home hero Marco Bezzecchi who's making the front running, a 1:31.166, which is already a couple of tenths quicker than what we saw from Frankie Morbidelli this morning. I know you're a very big fan of Marco Bezzecchi. He's a very big fan of yours, Kevin. What have you made of his season? Because it's been so tough for Marco. First time he's been in a factory team. You know how much pressure that puts on your shoulders in terms of delivering results, but also developing a motorcycle. He's had to do a lot of that work without Jorge Martin alongside him, with all of Jorge's injury problems. So he really has actually stood up and been counted this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Bezzecchi's done a great job. There's been some great weekends for him, some right up near the front weekends, and it's interesting to see him starting off near the top or at the top here in second practice. So I feel like Aprilia at their home Grand Prix, maybe a little. You're not going to have an advantage over Ducati as far as home track goes, but maybe the rider being that close to his house, that close to his training grounds. I feel like him and the entire VR46 team really kind of got a leg up on everybody this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they've done gazillions of laps, haven't they, that lot around this Mazzano circuit. We were saying this morning, Frankie Morbidelli could have probably done a 131.5 with one hand tied behind his back and blindfolded. They know every single millimetre of this track, don't they? They're here on the Ducati Panigale production bike. Basically, this is their second home, isn't it? They spend as much time around Mazzano as what they do in their own house as the VR46 Academy squad.
And of course, the VR46 ranch in Tavullia, not a million miles from here. Luca Marini's got into third place, and he's the rider that generally, whenever you ask the VR46 Academy riders who tends to win the races on the dirt trackers around the ranch, they generally say Luca Marini is the rider.
Well, isn't he the one Rossi always has for his teammate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Valentino is not going to be picking the slow guys, is he?
Hey, Frankie, you be my teammate. I think Marini's a little faster than you. Yeah, it's interesting to see because I forgot about Marini. He's definitely an Academy kid as well, and another one with just so much knowledge of this place. The Marco Simoncelli circuit here at Mazzano is a great layout. It was entertaining the other direction. I got to ride it in May. We were here for EICMA ride days, and I got to ride a GSX 8 around it. So I wasn't going lightning, warp speed off the back straightaway here, but I tell you what, it still opens your eyes. It's big when you try and tip something off in there, no matter how fast you're going.
Yeah, I mean, just talk us through turn 11, the right-hander, Cavone, Kevin. I mean, on a Motogp bike, these guys are attacking it 6 gear, 285 kilometers an hour. But when you tip it in, gets the odd heart racing, I'd imagine.
It's one of those things where you really, and the easiest way to do it is to run out onto the paint a little bit, and I'm still skittish of the paint. I know they've got it to where it's so grippy now you can do whatever you want on the paint, but I bet heart rate goes up 15 or 20 beats as soon as you start trying to peel it off, especially if that right hand doesn't move. On a MotoGP bike, I don't think you can get through there flat. Maybe some of those guys can on new tires, tons of grip, but I don't think it'd be a race-long opportunity. So, what a great layout. They used to be really entertaining, fast laps coming out onto that back straightaway. The problem was the wall got really, really close on that last left-hander if things went wrong. But, this is just a great layout, really, really challenging.
Yeah, that Cavone corner, as you mentioned, is one of the most spectacular on the Grand Prix calendar. It's Mark versus Marco in the early part of this practice session here in Mazzano. It's Mark that leads the way on the factory Ducati, 131.026 on the 93, and a 10th and a half clear at the moment of Bez in second place.
Fabio Quartararo has just taken the inline for Yamaha up into fourth place, a 131.4. Quick check on Augusto Fernandez. He's done, as most in this session, 7 laps, a 32.7 for Augusto Fernandez, which is a couple of tenths shy of what he did earlier on today. Of course, Yamaha hoping that the technical gremlins that crept in on that V4 earlier on this morning are firmly behind them.
Quick look at the rear tyre choice at the moment in this practice. It's a bit of a mix. We've got Martin, Augusto Fernandez on the V4 Yamaha, Quartararo, Morbidelli, Miller, Bez, that we can see on our graphics, are out on the soft rear tyre. Especially Bagnaia trying to tackle that final corner. It's like down in turn 8, isn't it? It's like, just on the bridge. They call it turn 7 just on the bridge. It's more of a real high-speed kink, isn't it, through that part of the course.
Just crashed there, didn't he, last time he raced here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix last year when he was in third and really chasing down the top two of Enea Bastianini and Jorge Martin. And hey, he might have been right in position to take advantage when they came together right here on the final lap of that Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and how crucial those points proved to be by the time we got to the finale in Barcelona.
Remember that race? He was so much faster, wasn't he? But just before he crashed out, I think it was only Enea, the race winner, that lapped within a quarter of a second of his best time in that Grand Prix. There was a big dent in the championship hopes, wasn't it, for Bagnaia? He comes back into the factory Ducati garage, 6th place, a mid 131 from Pecco.
That's a fun thing when you start stringing together really fast laps late in the race, midway on. You just have to realize that everything's not as good as it was in the beginning, and you got to be able to find that fine line before everything goes wrong. And Pecco was pushing there, trying to get to the leaders, and just didn't quite get it pulled off that day. But man, as a rider, what an accomplishment! You're like, man, it feels like it's happening easy, and so you just keep pushing, and it sure is easy to make that mistake.
Yeah, I guess a little bit like we saw from Mark at the start of the season. He was so confident, so in the zone with the bike. We saw the mistake in Austin. There were further mistakes in Jerez when he was well placed, another mistake in Silverstone. Just how difficult is that when you're a rider like Mark that's only got one thought, and that's to just, he's the ultimate killer, isn't he? He always goes for the juggler, doesn't he, as we say, does Mark, just to rein himself back in after those early mistakes. It's almost like there was a switch in his head that went, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm stopping this, but I'm going to get to a point where I'm still going to be fast enough to decimate the field.
Late in the race, when you stick it in the gravel, it's hard to come back to the paddock and walk into the box. The guy said, "Didn't you read the board?" He said, +6. Not 6 feet. That was 6 seconds. That's the length of the front straightaway at Jerez. Come on, it's. But as a rider, you try and slow down, and you can start giving up 1 or 2 seconds a lap pretty easy, and then you may not be able to find that rhythm back. If somebody does start reeling you in a little bit, now the pressure's on, then it's really easy to make that mistake. So a lot of us find that it's just better to try and stay in that rhythm. Yeah, it might be just a little bit risky, but it sure is a lot easier.
Well, as Alex, his brother, found out to his cost last weekend, didn't he? Getting a bit overconfident when he was leading the sprint. That is all happening, folks, at not far shy of 300 kilometres an hour. That's why these are the best of the best, the elite of the elite. Even a former world champion sat alongside us is shaking his head in awe of that shot.
Using paint at that much lean angle at that speed.
It's been an excellent practice session so far for Mark. That opening 7-lap stint, unmatched to 1:31.026. I have to say, Luca Marini's looking really, really strong once again, isn't he? He was inside the top 6 this morning on that rapidly improving factory Honda. Luca Marini was saying in the pre-event press conference yesterday that maybe we might have to wait until 2026 before we see Honda constantly threatening the top 3. Well, it might be in about 48 hours' time.
End of this morning session, he was 6th. He's currently 5th. And once again, well into the mid-131s. On the circuit that, as we've already discussed, he will have so much knowledge fast from the get-go earlier on today. And it's a pretty varied top 10 at the moment. We've got a Ducati fastest from an Aprilia, from a Ducati. in the inline four just yet, even if it does appear as his scratch sheet's reached the ceiling of his performance. And of course, he's done so much to almost carry Yamaha on his back this season as Fabio Quartararo, and it's understandable that I guess that at times the frustration has shone through. Of course, agonisingly missing out on a victory at the British Grand Prix earlier this season when the ride height device jammed down. But some of the performances from Fabio Quartararo this season, even as a Hall of Famer yourself, must have taken your breath away.
Oh, absolutely. And to do it at Silverstone, I mean, one of the fast tracks out there, it looked like easily going to walk away and win the thing, and to have that mechanical problem really hurts.
That's right at the moment. Fourth fastest with a 1:31.427. That's just over 4/10 back of Mark as we stand right now.
Clearly still some life in the inline four just yet, even if it does appear as his scratch sheet's reached the ceiling of his performance. And of course, he's done so much to almost carry Yamaha on his back this season as Fabio Quartararo, and it's understandable that I guess that at times the frustration has shone through. Of course, agonisingly missing out on a victory at the British Grand Prix earlier this season when the ride height device jammed down. But some of the performances from Fabio Quartararo this season, even as a Hall of Famer yourself, must have taken your breath away.
Oh, absolutely. And to do it at Silverstone, I mean, one of the fast tracks out there, it looked like easily going to walk away and win the thing, and to have that mechanical problem really hurts. Confidence that it gives the rider, confidence it gives the team. Everybody's working at another level now, and for Fabio, that was, I'm sure, a tough one to swallow.
That's a rider who's done so much work behind the scenes to get Ducati into their current dominant position. It's Michele Pirro. Of course, because of Ducati's success, they are no longer allowed wildcards, are they? Which has seen Michele very much take a back seat in terms of the development of the GP25. Of course, he'll be very busy working behind the scenes imminently on the new 850cc Ducati engine, which will be part of the new rules in 2027. On the theme of Yamahas, we know that World Superbike champion Toprak Razgatlioglu is moving over to Motogp next year. It reminds me so much of you, actually. A fan favourite, a showman, ultra aggressive on the bike, and so fast, of course, as well. What do you think about Toprak coming over? I think a lot of people thought he might wait one more year to come over when we're on the Pirellis, but fair play to him. He's going to give it a go next year.
You know, I think next year is going to be one of those seasons that we're not going to really know what to expect. You spend a lot of time really trying to develop something new, and you know it's going to have to change displacement the following season. You're going to have a completely different grip package underneath you. There's so many things that it might be one of those seasons that when everything finishes up this year, that's the way it's all going to be. Everybody's going to try and just maintain. Maybe nobody really puts a lot of effort into developing the old bike any further. So it might be a great opportunity for Toprak to get in, get on something. And we absolutely know by watching him ride a superbike, he has the skill set to handle a motorcycle at whatever speed it's going and whatever brand it is. And I think Toprak is going to step in, and I think he'll have a pretty quick impact on this new class that he's pursuing.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to seeing the world champion possibly. He'll come over as the World Superbike champion once again, as he's well on course to successfully defend the crown in the factory BMW team. Will his place there be taken by Miguel Oliveira, the Prima Pramac Yamaha rider, who knows he's out of business here in MotoGP next year. Oliveira had a pretty tough start to this Marino Grand Prix. 2 crashes this morning, which was a very un-Miguel-like, wasn't it? At turn 16 and turn 3. He's currently in 21st place as he looks to build back some confidence.
Yeah, in many respects, the current standings in this session kind of tell the Yamaha story of 2025. Fabio Quartararo up in 4th on a 1:31.4. None of the other Yamahas are in the 31s. Rins 14th on a 32.0. We've got Miller and Oliveira on mid-32s, 20th, 21st, and of course Augusto Fernandez, who's testing out the V4 in a competitive capacity for the first time, 22nd at the moment as we follow Pedro Acosta through the final corner. He's kind of stepped up, hasn't he, in recent rounds as one of the main threats to Marc Marquez and the Ducati squad. And it looks as if there's been something of a mental reset for Pedro Acosta, who was perhaps letting his frustration boil over earlier in the season. Perhaps having got that under control, we're now seeing Acosta really put that KTM back in the podium battle, where he he will feel that he belongs.
Yeah, Pedro doing a great job. Young rider, just getting over aggressive, frustrated with maybe not having the best bike out there, not being able to do what he wants to do. You know, I can relate to that 100%. So looks like the KTM's making some improvements. The whole group of them are moving up. Maverick's been fast a few times. Bastianini's been on the podium. It's a work in progress, and it really seems like to me they're making some headway.
Yeah, Maverick Vinales has just moved himself up inside the top 10. Every lap is a tough lap right now as far as the number 12 is concerned. Still has very limited mobility in that left shoulder after that crash in that wet kitting session at the Sachsenring in Germany. Maverick's feeling that he won't be at his peak physical best until we head into 2026 and the pre-season, which will head before our first Grand Prix at the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. Let's go down to pit lane then and get some latest thoughts as we get a bit of, well, these two are the ultimate trash talkers, aren't they? Trash talking on the bike at the moment, aren't they? Bez and Bagnaia, a bit of elbow-to-elbow action in pit lane. And while we're on the subject of Pecco, let's get an update from Jack in pit lane.
Yeah, well, it's good to see him joking around. You certainly wouldn't have seen him do that in Hungary and Barcelona on Friday when he was having his struggles. And that's maybe coupled with the fact that we've seen him switch back to the slightly shorter, old version style Öhlins front forks. You might know from the past couple of years that Öhlins introduced a slightly longer front fork that basically everybody on the grid has been using. Pecco, the only anomaly over recent years when he's had so much success. During the past couple of Grand Prix, when they've been desperately trying to find some kind of a solution to this front end feel issue that has dogged him throughout the vast part of this year, they have gone to these longer front forks. But on Sunday morning in Barcelona, they've reverted back to what he knows, what he's been successful with before. And I think this is just all about the process that Davide Tardozzi spoke about, of giving Pecco a bike that at least he knows and understands. They can try work on him first, get that confidence back, try and get his head right, and then from there they'll look to try and find some answers going into 2026. But clearly, by going back to what he knows, it's giving him just a little bit of confidence back, which is good to see for Bagnaia.
Yeah, Jack. They've tried everything and they've tried so many different setups. They moved that factory Ducati left, right, up, down, you name it. There's probably not a lot left in the truck as far as Bagnaia's got to try and find some much needed front end confidence. Of course, so many years, if you're on a factory Ducati or on any Ducati, all the other riders will tell you that is where Pecco can make the time. That's where he's stronger than anybody else in the braking zones. This could be a good lap actually coming in from Bagnaia as he tips it left through turn 15. On course maybe for the top 4 he was through the first half of this lap. We're tracking through the Mazzano corner after their elbow bashing, joking of course, as they left pit lane. It's Bez just behind Bagnaia. Good session this as far as the factory Aprilia team are concerned, with Bezzecchi up there in third. Not too far out of what will be the all-important top 10 shortly is Martin. So Bagnaia just rolling out of it and allowing Bez to sweep on through. Marc Marquez is, as you can see on the timing tab, still leads this session. 1:31.026 is still our benchmark time.
If you look at the top 10 at the moment, you can see plenty of VR46 influence in Gian Antonio second for the VR46 team, Bezzecchi third, Academy graduate Morbidelli fourth, of course, is both. We've got Bagnaia sixth from the Academy, Marini 10th. And while Aneo Bastianini isn't a VR46 Academy graduate, he perhaps is as good at this circuit as any of those that are. He's up in 9th place at the moment on the Tech 3 KTM in a weekend where, of course, he's having to work with a brand new crew chief. Kevin, how difficult as a rider is that to have to manage, and just how central is the crew chief to just how a rider approaches every single part of their weekend?
Yeah, I only made one crew chief change, and that was from after 91. I got Stuart Shenton in 1992, and yeah, you listen to him, you come in, you give him your ideas, he translates that, he tells you, okay, here's what the bike should be doing different. I didn't want to know what changes he made. I wanted to know what I should be able, what should I expect from the motorcycle. And Stuart was really good at translating that for me. So, yeah, working with somebody new it always seems like it takes a while. I mean, we did 10 or 15,000 kilometers worth of testing at the end of 92, starting 93. And that's why I think we were as good as we were most of the 93 season, because we had experienced everything. We'd gone certain places and had hot, slick tracks. We've had cold tracks. We had damp tracks. We had low grip, no grip, high grip. There were so many different things that we had to work through, and Stuart was really good at interpreting that for me.
Yeah, of course, Stuart, I think still very, very active over in the British Superbike paddock as crew chief to Rory Skinner, who had some success last weekend at Donington Park. I believe VR46 had a bit of success in your neck of the woods last weekend, and he was on the podium in Austin, wasn't he?
He did. He finished second. I turned, I didn't turn it on, but Texas turned on the rain for him, and I think it just created an element where nobody knew what was happening from 1 hour to the next. And 46 can accommodate just about any track conditions out there, so I'm sure he did a great job. I didn't get to go to the track. I was on my way back from Idaho, so.
Probably not too many people that have had podiums in Austin on 2 and 4 wheels. Yeah. For a pretty exclusive club of one,
I was going to say, it might be him.
As good as he is over 22 laps, whatever it is, the Grand Prix of the Americas, clearly over a 6-hour race, although of course he wasn't driving for the entirety of the 6 hours. The Lone Star Le Mans, as I believe it's called, the World Endurance Championship race over there at the Circuit of the Americas. Valentino Rossi showing just exactly how good he is still even now. Of course, Valentino here as part of the Hall of Fame introduction and unveiling yesterday here in Rimini.
As you can see there, Luca Marini wiping the beads of sweat off his forehead. It is really hot out here this afternoon. It feels like this is good prep for Mandalika and Sepang coming up in a few weeks' time as we head off on our Asia tour. There is the latest Honda upgrades. There is the rear aero, the Stegosaurus fins on the back, and then the new exhaust. Honda were never going to take this line down, Kevin, this barren run that they've had since Mark left them a couple of years ago. Well, they were struggling even when Mark was there towards the tail end of his career with HRC. But they're coming. They are coming back, aren't they? Close to where they want to be and need to be for a sleeping giant like them.
When I raced, Honda was always kind of the team. They always had the fastest bike in the straight line, and I was always convinced that if I could have gotten on one, I could have made it go around the corners. But it seems like, from rumors, that it's quite the difficult place to work, because when Mark was there, it was like ride it like Mark rides it until you ride it faster than Mark rides it. We're not making any changes. Your input is null and void. So, and as a rider, you need what makes you confident, and sometimes it's not what Mark was riding. So, Honda builds a great product, and there's no doubt that they were going to take that they were just going to stand around and take losing easily. But HRC is a brand that you know is going to be working its way back to the top.
Interesting to watch that animated discussion that Marc Marquez was having there with his crew chief Marco Rigamonti. Gigi Dall'Igna was listening intently and certainly looked on the track map. He said Marc Marquez was pointing at the 3 rights through the 3rd sector, turns 11, 12 and 13. There's an area he needs to improve upon, and clearly an area that perhaps some of the other Ducati riders have a slight edge on him through there.
Well, it was Alex and the 2 fast rights that completed the lap in Barcelona. Well, he was a 10th or 2 quicker than Mark throughout that weekend. He's always talked about it, hasn't he? He's improved in the right-handers, has Mark, but he says Alex certainly has his measure in those particular parts of circuits. What have you made of Alex, Kevin? I mean, that last weekend was awesome. I mean, to sort of resist that race-long onslaught from Mark, I mean, that's got to be a pretty uncomfortable position when you're just seeing on your pit board, when you're on your absolute limit and you can just see plus 0.93. But he handled it impeccably. I mean, for many of us, it was probably one of the rides of Alex's life last weekend.
It's pressure like you just can't ever even think about expressing to somebody, but it's your brother. You've been racing that guy since since you were his brother. One more of those opportunities where having it being your brother back there. Not that he's going to give you the race, not going to let you win, but he's not going to do anything silly. So, Alex is, we know he's a proven talent. His consistency hasn't quite shown yet, but last weekend was definitely a confidence builder for him.
I think you could sense that, speaking to him in the pre-event press conference yesterday. It was just almost a psychological boost for Alex. It was the 6th Marquez 1-2 in Motogp. The first time, though, that it's been Alex that has beaten Mark in what was a straight fight. And you've got to see, we saw from the picture that turned 10, how hard Mark was pushing, how much on the limit he was to try and put that pressure on Alex. That was not a gimme from Mark at all.
Well, Mark has said himself to you, didn't he, on Sunday after the Grand Prix? He said, I put in a perfect ride. There he is, pointing at the right-handers through 11, 12 and 13, particularly Cabone, turn 11 is the area he needs to improve. He said, I rode a perfect race, and I still couldn't beat my younger brother.
It doesn't, just watching that replay of getting through 10, it doesn't look like the bike's quite finishing the corner like he wants it to. It looks like it was still turned quite a bit when he got to the paint, and the bar shook just a little bit. So I'm sure that's may have been what Mark was talking to Gigi about.
Yeah, I'm sure Gigi's got a fix somewhere in his seemingly endless box of tricks that roll out of Borgo Panigale. All those... Well, as the switch back to that shorter stroke front Öhlins 4 going to be the magic one fix that Pekka Bagnaia is hoping for. This has been much more like the Bagnaia of the last 3 years so far this weekend. He's troubling in the top 6, which we certainly weren't saying throughout much of the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, and last time out in Barcelona. As soon as we say that, there's a massive shake of frustration.
Pekka turning the air blue there through turn 1 as he clearly doesn't get the response he wanted from the Ducati as he braked for turn 1, and so much of Pekka Bagnaia's struggles this season are focused on exactly that. It's getting the bike stopped, braking, not just on an angle, but braking full stop. He just doesn't have the front end feel and confidence to really drop that Ducati on its side.
Piero Taramassa from Michelin, is it in the background? It is, yeah, it's Piero Taramassa, Michelin Motorsport Manager, who's very much involved in these Marquez debriefs and Bagnaia debriefs at the moment inside the factory Ducati garage, just quietly going on about his business as he always does. Here's Marini, this is him now, the factory Honda through turn 3. Would have been a VR46 graduate now, Marco Bezzecchi in 4th place. It feels very much like the calm before the storm, doesn't it? Before we go into time attack mode. Top 10 as always at the end of this session will be directly through to Q2. Pedro Costa, as we can see, trying maybe to get in an early banker lap here. He's out on fresh, soft rear rubber. Tracking now through turn 2. Over the line goes Bezzecchi. No improvement on that lap from the Italian.
I wonder if that's what Bagnaia was up to, was he just put a set of new tires on, he went into the first turn and blew the first corner. That's what he was as frustrated about. But yeah, as we're getting kind of late in this session, that could very easily be what it was.
And the riders at the moment outside the top 10 that need to climb up. Bastianini 11th ahead of his teammate from Tech 3, Maverick Vinales. Brad Binder, the 4th of the KTMs in terms of the order, with Acosta the order in 9th. He's 13th from Agura, Mir, Rins, Martin 17th. From Aldeguer, Miller, Zarco, Oliveira, Fernandez and Chandra. It is super, super close, as it so often is in MotoGP, but a circuit such as this really does see the gaps really close up down the field. Less than half a second covers the top 10 down to Raul Fernandez on the first of the Trackhouse Aprilias, as Luca Marini now climbs a place now up into 5th spot, and a second, as near as makes no difference, takes you all the way down to Jorge Martin in 17th place on a 132.0.
Trackhouse has done a good job. They started off the season really strong and then just kind of faded into the distance. But as we look here, both bikes sneaking up on the top 10 anyway, at least in with a shot to maybe get up there.
Yeah, Raul Fernandez 10th at the moment. Agura, his teammate, in 14th place. Good to see Agura stand back inside the top 6 last weekend in Barcelona. First visit on a Sunday to the top 6 since that brilliant debut in Buriram. Just Casey Stoner there, obviously observing out on circuit, maybe just offering some thoughts on Luca Marini's progress. That's PP, Christian Pupilin, on the left-hand side of your picture. Yeah, there he goes, right on cue. Luca Marini's crew chief, of course, for so many years he was part of the Ducati family and moved over with Jack Miller to KTM before he joined Marini in the factory Honda squad. And I guess when Casey Stoner talks to you and gives you some thoughts, you listen.
Yeah, anything that he's learned about motorcycle racing, or anything he hasn't learned, isn't worth learning really from his point of view. Such a ferocious talent on board a MotoGP bike. Of course, retiring at a rather early stage, didn't he? Of course, but he still had so much to offer, but clearly decided that he'd gotten everything out of Motogp that he wanted, and that Motogp wasn't for him anymore when he dramatically retired back in 2012.
Rode a Ducati when Ducatis weren't really all that rideable, and when they weren't the favorite thing in the paddock.
Yeah, that 2007 World Championship when he had the rocket ship 800cc engine. I'll never forget that Qatar Grand Prix round 1, where he just tore the paint off the Honda and Yamaha down the start finish straight in Doha. Back then with Mark, just coming out of turn 14, so he's coming out of turn 10. The close-up shot there looked like he's coming through the slow Caro corner, but now he's going through the high speed at turn 11. Cavone was on the curbs on the inside there, was he? I just wonder whether you were right, Kev, that the line as he ran on the curves there, maybe just unsettling the bike too much for him. Clearly there he was on a much more, shall we say, conservative line, if you can call Cavone at 280 kilometres conservative.
Yeah, anytime your knee's almost on the ground at 280, there's no conserving anything there. You're clenching on that seat like no tomorrow.
Maverick Vinales, new soft front and rear rubber for the Tech 3 KTM rider, and he's making it work in the opening half of his current lap. Maverick currently in 12th place. This could be a lap. Well, it should be a lap if he carries it on through. Here is Top Gun now. Through turn 15 he goes. Just one more left-hander for him to negotiate. This is the Mazzano corner. Should be a top 10 lap this from Maverick. Confirmation on your screens that he's out on the new set of Michelin tyres. Over the line he goes. Just misses out. Up to 11 for the 131.540.
Yeah, the solid background of the S you could see on that graphic indicates it's a new tyre. If it's a clear background, it means he's on tyres that he's already ran at some stage through the weekend. So he's in 11th place now. The Tech 3 KTM's essentially swapping positions. Perhaps the surprise, looking at who's in the top 10 and who isn't, is the fact that Luca Marini's up in 5th on his factory Honda, but by comparison, Joan Mir and Johan Zarco down in 17th and 19th respectively at the moment, and Marini's got the best part of half a second over Mir and 3/4 of a second over Zarco, who was down in 22nd this morning and hasn't made too much progress up the order today.
He's frustrated there, Vinales, because he made a meal of turn 4, didn't he? Going into rear. That's why there was the big shake of the head from the Spaniard. He was just building up for another hot lap on that KTM.
It's funny, you start seeing him shaking his head well before you ever get to the corner. But as a rider, you know, I'm about 10 mile an hour too fast. This is not going to work. If I try and make it work, I'm going to end up scratching up some paint. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to know when you've made a little mistake like that.
Yeah, and it's tough for Vinales. I kind of feel for Maverick, injuries, of course, are part of the game, but in the first part of the season when a lot of the KTMs are struggling, Maverick was clearly their leading light and getting the best out of, well, at that time seemed a pretty average RC16, and just at the time of the year when KTM started to find some improvements with some really strong upgrades, Maverick got injured and he's nowhere near fully fit. I mean, he said that he really struggled to stop the bike in left-hand corners, struggling to get himself tucked into the slipstream position on the straight, which of course hindered him badly in Barcelona. I was talking to a couple of people last night in Riccione who was saying that he can't really raise his left arm above his shoulder, so there's a real lack of movement and mobility. So he's actually doing a pretty solid job at the moment just to be out there, to be fair to him.
Pedro Acosta snuck up another spot or two. He's in P6 now. Having done 19 laps. He and Mark Marquez are the only ones even close. Oh no, there's Bezecchi's done 19 laps as well. So sticking together a bunch of laps, trying to get as best prepared as they can for this time attack.
I mean, he's fastest, Mark, at the moment, but clearly we can see the second visit into the factory Ducati garage, he's having to work for it. He's having to work hard. That factory Ducati underneath him, probably not as compliant as he's hoping at the moment here in Mazzano. But as always, he always finds a way, doesn't he, to find a way around, riding around issues as we pick up Bastianini now going through Cavone. What a corner. What a corner.
And from the relative chaos to the relative calm inside the VR46 box of Frankie Morbidelli, who had to sit and watch like that for the first 10 minutes of free practice 1 this morning. but it's clearly not impacted Morbidelli's weekend too much. Of course, we saw him on a sprint podium for the very first time here last year. Of course, a circuit that has got so many fond memories for Frankie. A maiden MotoGP victory here back in 2020. Of course, that's part of that VR46 Academy, a special place for Frankie, and he's currently part of a VR46 2-3. They are the nearest challengers right now to Marc Marquez.
I read somewhere that Jack Miller thought or said it'll be our luck the new V4 will beat us this weekend. And looking where Miller and Oliveira are,
He's not far off, is he?
Fernandez is pretty doggone close.
It's pretty encouraging at the moment for the new Yamaha V4. More than respectable lap times being set by Fernandez this morning, a 1:32.537. This afternoon, a 1:32.571.
Bastianini and that left-hander just a bit wide and look over his shoulder to make sure he wasn't coming back down in front of somebody. Probably a little bit frustrating for him. Let's see how he gets into turn 10 here.
Just briefly rolls the throttle, doesn't he? Flicked it right.
This is a brand new soft rear tyre that Bastianini's got on here, but really no immediate jump up the order for the Beast, who's come from further back than 12th in MotoGP sessions here to finish on the podium. Of course, his rookie season in 2021 when he took a pair of podiums.
Yeah, in his last 7 Grand Prix here across Moto2 and MotoGP, he's been on the podium in the lot at Hasanaya. This is a very happy hunting ground as far as he's concerned. Clearly he's found his form on that KTM. He made a good point last weekend, actually, post Barcelona, where he said he spent too much time at the start of the season to the midpoint of the season trying to get the KTM to suit his style, when it actually should have been the complete opposite. As soon as he sort of went, well, it's not working, I've got to adapt my riding style now to suit the KTM. Well, he started to make big progress, hasn't he, towards the front where we know the Beast belongs. What about Bagnaia? At the moment, 8th, which does put him in that danger zone towards the wrong end of the top 10. At the moment, on course to pick up 1 spot. Brand new fresh Michelin rubber underneath Pecco at the moment as he powers out on the final corner. Let's just check his progress, and over the line he goes. Well, it was better than 7th, it was 5th, a 1:31.281. Pecco said yesterday his objective for the weekend in the sprint and the Grand Prix was a top 5. Felt like that was a realistic goal, and well, he's been bang on the money so far with that prediction.
Bastianini looks like he's getting more of a tune out of his KTM on this next lap. He's on target, and was until he came through the 3rd sector and lost a second and a half to get himself into the top 10. So potentially he's made a mess of one of those right-handers coming back towards the pits. I think we're going to see potentially what went wrong.
Didn't quite get enough of the curb there. I think it's going to struggle to finish.
Oh,
Yep. The 2 factory Aprillas were out on track together too. It'd be interesting to see if they're going to work together to try and maybe pull each other along and sneak further up into the top 10.
Well, there's Xavi Palasin, who has taken over crew chief duties now for Enea Bastianini. Of course, a split behind the scenes in Barcelona last weekend with his long-standing crew chief, Albi Giraviola.
Look at the stat that Bagnaia's made in that 3rd sector, where, of course, the VR46 Academy riders are so strong. He turned near enough 10th of a second deficit into a 10th and a half advantage here. And is Pecco Bagnaia going to set the first sub-131 of the day, as Quartararo's also threatening further back. Bagnaia down to a 1:30.794. He puts a quarter of a second into teammate Marc Marquez.
The team are going to go now. We should have put those old forks in about 3 or 4 rounds ago as he finds the first 1:30. Now that is much more like it, isn't it?
Did you find out half a second there? I mean, yeah, there was a bike right in front of him. Maybe a little bit of draft down the back, but man, that is a big step.
Just great to see his name.
And here comes his teammate.
Yeah, Pecco's thinking, you know what, that 1:30.7 was pretty cool, that's pretty fast, and here comes Marc, despite all of his issues with some of these fast right-handers at the back end of this lap. Look at this, he's almost 3 tenths clear Take out at the moment, really making that soft rear tyre work through 15. He goes one corner left, then 493, just drops that left leg, gets it all stable on the brakes, powers out the final corner now. This could be 130.4, is it? Maybe it is a 130.480. And we have the factory Ducatis first and second here in Misano, but for how much longer?
Yeah, Morbidelli and Bezzecchi, who are together on the racetrack, are also improving. Binder's gone up into the top 10 in 7th, so he's now the top KTM, which we haven't really said so far today. He and Bezzecchi are on identical lap times now, 6th and 7th. Morbidelli, the nearest challenger to the factory Ducatis. Could he now split them on this next lap? That's where he goes. He closes the gap, but he stays behind. It's Bezzecchi that splits the factory Ducatis. They're pretty now up into second, and he's only a 10.5 behind Marc Marquez.
Martin then down to a 131.20, and it's been evident clearly since he made his return from injury a few races ago that Jorge Martin's struggles at the moment on the factory at Aprilia are all time attack related. Can't get anything out of a soft rear tyre at the moment. There's a Costa's Rapid in sector 2, more fresh rubber underneath the factory KTM star. Barcelona winner Alex comes across the line. He's still in, well, he just climbed up 6 places to 4th. Now, will he feel a 130.838 as already good enough to get him directly through to Q2?
Mir has now joined Marini in the top 10. Honda's 9th and 10th. Let's see what Acosta's been able to do, and the answer is a quarter of a second slower than what Marc Marquez was doing through there, so that's potentially going to put him somewhere near Bagnaia, Alex Marquez and Morbidelli. But Acosta needs to get a lap on the board here. He's currently outside the top 10 at the moment. Only one KTM is in the top 10. That is Brad Binder. Pedro Acosta now set to change that as he climbs from 11th up to 6th.
Vinales was briefly in 11th. He's been pushed back down to 12th place. Would be a massive bonus for Vinales to get himself directly through to Q2. Last thing he needs right now in his physical state is an extra 15 minutes on track in Q1. Look at this from Mir. 10th at the moment. Full commitment on the factory Honda going through Cavode now. Sort of continually decreasing speed through the right-handers. Through 12, 13, now 14, one of the slowest corners on the circuit. First gear there through the Caro turn. Zarco's just gone up to 14th with a 131.499. Right in the danger though right now is Mir, looking to rectify that. Oh, he was flirting with the green there on the outside of turn 16. I think he's going to be okay. 4th quickest to 130.819. Mir up to 4th. What a job.
So we've got world champions 1st, 3rd and 4th. Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia and Joan Mir. Quartararo 9th. And of course the reigning world champion here, Jorge Martin, down in 18th. And have to draw attention once again to the wild card on the V4, Augusto Fernandez. He's in 18th place, it's now become 19th place. He's just pumped in a 131.678. He's found the best part of a second than what he did earlier on today. And Augusto Fernandez, once again, only 1.1 seconds off Marc Marquez on a bike that's still very early in its development.
Yeah, he's ahead of 2 other Yamahas, Rins and Oliveira, who are probably saying, just give us the V4 right now, we'll take it, thank you very much.
Gian Antonio on his Ducati is trying to lift himself up from some relatively choppy waters in 8th place. Certainly wouldn't say he's safe. You need to be in the 130s, I think, to be anything like comfortable of a place in the top 10. Gian Antonio is the first rider who isn't. He's on a 131.1, and Zarco using the 49 bike just ahead of him to potentially replace Gian Antonio in that top 8. It's the rider behind this we should be watching. Zarco across the line, and he does go up ahead of Digia into 8th place.
Yeah, the 131.208 we saw from Martin, which briefly put him inside the top 10. He'd actually exceeded track limits on that lap. That was scrubbed off. That's the reason why he's now dumped back into 18th place, a 131.6. So more work to do then for Martin. Down back to Jack.
Yeah, you could just see it's really brilliantly highlighted on Johan Zarco's bike with him running the white colour scheme. He's got that brand new rear aero on as well, which he didn't have this morning. Joan Mir has got it on as well. He didn't have it on this morning, so clearly it's a big step for Honda for 3 of the 4 riders to have it bolted on to this time attack.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's clearly working with both Mir and Zarco as it stands right now. Still just under 7 minutes remaining of this session. A lot can change, but those 2 Hondas at the moment going into Q2. On ball with Marco Bezzecchi, looking back to his factory, Aprilia teammate Martin. This is through the left-hander of 6. Build up speed now at 300 kilometres an hour as you come under the bridge now, through the fast kink of 7. Hard now on the brakes into turn 8. This is the point of a weekend where Martin has had his struggles. Just wonder whether this is a bit of a tactic here from Aprilia, with Marco Bezzecchi already looking well secure to go through the Q2 with that 130.6. Just to give Martin a bit of a reference.
The Roman Emperor, there he is. Yeah. Max Biaggi. I saw him at the Hall of Fame dinner last night.
4 times 250cc world champion and Aprilia ambassador, of course, these days is Max Biaggi. It's like a who's who of Grand Prix racing in memory last night, wasn't it? Such a star-studded cast. The Hall of Fame launch. Pecco Bagnaia, who was briefly our leader in this session, still keeping himself inside that top 3. This will just be such a boost, such a shot in the arm for the under siege Italian. As Martin getting in the slipstream of his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. At the moment, this will be the lap where we're going to find out what Martin's got. Bit of temperature now in that soft rear tyre. If you're going to follow anybody around Mazzano, it might as well be one of the VR46 Academy guys. Marco Bezzecchi, he knows his way around this 4.2 kilometre circuit very, very well.
As does Pecco Bagnaia, although an improvement is unlikely on this lap. It's another sub-31, 130.978, but Bagnaia stays in 3rd. We're right on board then with Jorge Martin, and both of the Aprilias are improving, although the first sector only complete. Martin, this is the area where, of course, he needs to make the biggest improvement still on board this factory Aprilia. Nothing wrong with his race pace there, as it looked like he was a little bit deep there into Queccia, turn 8, and you can see perhaps a few metres opening up between Bezzecchi and Martin. Martin closes then back in then under braking for Tramonto, and is Bezzecchi potentially going to tow his teammate into the top 10?
Yeah, in his 5 previous starts this year for Martin, only once on his return in Brno has he featured in a Q2 session. Through the fast rights we go then into the final 5 minutes of this session. Yellow flags are out in the opening sector. That's not going to have any impact on Bez and Martin on their current lap. That yellow flag is still out though, as they come over the line very, very shortly. It certainly will have a big impact. That yellow flag is still out as well as Bastianini tips into the first corner. This is lap gone.
It's Augusto Fernandez who unfortunately has damaged one of those V4 Yamahas after one of them broke down this morning. Bezzecchi improves in 2nd place, and Martin now up into 6th place. He has found that crucial 130.
Yeah, Martin owes Bezza Piadina in Rimini tonight, doesn't he? That's for sure.
Yeah, it's at least a Piadina, I think that is.
This is the crash for Augusto Fernandez then, tipping it left through 2. So easy to do that. So many right-handers in the second half of the lap leading onto the main straight, and then the left of 2 is generally where you see riders struggle. Fernandez then will not be improving, it would appear, on 19th place.
Did he just pick up a little bit too much curve maybe on the inside there on that new V4? Nevertheless, it has been a pretty dramatic debut for the V4 after it stopped this morning on Augusto Fernandez. Clearly, though, it's got some serious potential, hasn't it? 131.6 from Augusto.
Yeah, El Diablo needs to find him a spot, at least, to be comfortable. So sitting in 11th, I bet Fabio's going to come out and string together a couple of good laps so he can get 2 in.
Just did a 131.2 on his last lap just before he sat up there, and that's a crash for Joan Mir into Tramonto corner. It looks like he's gone down through the right of 9 before he's arrived at 10, because you can see how far he's ended up towards the wall. Mir currently in 5th, but a painful end to his session.
He's lost that straight up and down, hasn't he? The way how far he's gone. Boy, yeah.
It's coming our way.
Looks like he was a little bit offline there, maybe a little bit wider onto a slightly dirty part of the circuit, but he's gone a long way through there. Through the long lap he's gone. Looks like he's taken a bit of a whack on the right arm. Yeah, nasty one that for Joan Mir. At the moment, 5th. How damaging that could be to his prospects of being in Q2.
He was on a personal best. He just set his best second sector and was only half a tenth away from what Marc Marquez was doing. So Mir was going well prior to that crash. His place in the top 10, though, relatively secure at the moment. Those yellow flags have now cleared, but Mir on a 30.8 should be reasonably secure. We've got 4 riders at the moment on 30.8. Mir, Martin, Morbidelli and Acosta. there. Zarco and Gian Antonio on low 31s as we take a look at the factory Aprilia riders, and this Jorge Martin potentially thanking his teammate. It is a little bit of a doff of the cap to Bezzecchi. Thank you for helping me potentially reach Q2.
Yeah, I thought that was the strategy that was at play there.
That corner that Mir crashed in, such an easy corner to get in too deep, because you try and get in, and you feel like you're going so slow when you get to the center that, okay, I'm going to be a little more aggressive this time. So an easy mistake to make, and late in this session, good to see Mir up and looking to be okay anyway.
Yeah, let's hope that Mir's going to be relatively okay. It's a smart move that by Aprilia. It's a no-brainer really, because what we've seen, Jorge Martin over the last couple of Grand Prix has had podium bags as we got yellow flags out late on here.
It could cost Quartararo, although he's lost time anyway in the second sector. We're into the heart of the fourth sector now with Bastianini. It was the yellows in turn 15. And it looks like a painful one for Raul Fernandez.
It's a painful one for Enea. Both times he's been in full time attack mode. At turn 2 he got the yellow flag for the Fernandez crash when he was flying, and now he's caught the yellow flags late on for Raul Fernandez. Turn 15 is a right old get off here in Mazzano. Second gear, got 130 odd kilometres going through there. So Fabio Quartararo's rolled out of it.
You've got 20 seconds, Fabio, to get yourself to the finish line to start one more lap. You could still potentially rescue a Q2 place out of this.
Looks like Morbidelli's going to be safe. Yeah, the yellow flags have cleared, so Morbidelli now going through turn 14, the bottom gear right-hander. Already looking pretty set to go directly through to Q2 is Frankie, but just making sure there is no late dramas. More yellow flags now out in the first sector. This won't impact Morbidelli, which could be a top 3 lap here. Jack Miller's gone down on the Pramac Yamaha. Morbidelli does indeed go into third place. He's the first rider to take the checker flag in this session. Frankie's best work, a 130.673.
It's been a costly day for Pramac, hasn't it? That's 3 crashes now for their 2 riders. Quartararo was ahead of Miller, incidentally, on the racetrack, and has set his best first sector so far.
A costly day all round for Yamaha, hasn't it? With a crash as well on the new V4 for Augusto Fernandez. Look at this from Vinales. This would be something special by Maverick. Well, just look how much time he lost in that third sector. Just hasn't got the upper body strength to muscle that KTM around through those fast rides.
Gian Antonio might need this final sector because Quartararo is taking aim at him further back. Can Dicci get ahead of Zarco? He does, and that could be crucial. He's now into the 130s, and it looks like a battle of the 2 Frenchmen, with Marini also potentially in the contention. It looks like the 3 of them are fighting for one Q2 place here.
Marini 14th at the moment, nothing really going for him as he's halfway through the final sector. He's almost been a permanent fixture all day, hasn't he, inside the top 6? That has Marini. He's about to come over the line now.
Should be enough, this.
Over the line he goes. Yeah, that's more like it. 7-4. Better late than never as far as the Italian is concerned. He slots in behind Joan Mir. Fabio Quartararo, though, has missed out. Quartararo is in Q1. At best, Fabio will be 12th at the end of that session, just 1 spot behind fellow Frenchman Zarco. And I think that's it. That's your lot. Marc Marquez, yeah, Marini's pumped. Yeah, he knows that was a big 130.848.
Honda's 6th and 7th.
Game changer for your weekend to get through directly into Q2.
6, 7, and 11. And I mean, just missing it, Zarco did. And he'd been nowhere most of the day. I mean, right towards like back 4 or 5 bikes, but obviously found something with that helped him out with some confidence there late in the session, because he was definitely a threat to sneak into the top 10.
He really was. We thought Enea Bastianini was going to be one of those contenders for the top 10. Those late yellow flags really did for the beast. Deary me, what's going to be going through the Marino Enea right now? 18th fastest. Well, we know he'll just be airing his frustration about all the late drama. He'll feel like there was a top 10 lap in him, but 18th for Enea. Well, he was fastest this morning, was Morbidelli, and he's top 3 this afternoon once again. Marco Bezzecchi, who I'm sure is going to be sending the receipt to Jorge Martin, sending in the bill for the time.